So over the last few years, I've realized there are a bunch of things that no one ever teaches you about running a business. And these are the kind of mistakes that you can make for years on end without ever realizing, or at least that's what I did. Now, obviously building a business can completely change your life. You could finally quit that soul-sucking job and do all the things you've been dreaming of, like traveling the world and finally getting around to those hobbies and telling Derek where to stick that stapler on your way out. But after a high point like that, running a business can quickly go from being a dream to a nightmare. What you previously thought would make you rich, healthy and free has just made you fat, broke and stressed. And at this stage you have three options. You can either continue running that business that's making you miserable, you can figure out how to run a business that actually makes you happy and gives you the life you want, or you could slap a little rebrand on yourself, become a course guru, pretend you're extremely successful, tell everyone how you're going to teach them the ways of success, and if that fails, you still have Forex trading, because it's always good to have a backup plan. Now, luckily, if there's one thing that I'm an expert at, that is making the same mistake over and over again before eventually learning that lesson and then changing my behavior. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the 7 things that no one teaches you about running a business that will save you a lot of time. So the first thing is that you need to be annoyingly persistent. Now, when I first started as a freelancer, I used to write these really awful vanilla emails. I'd send them off and I'd just hope for the best. I'd hope someone would reply to me. I wouldn't be persistent because I didn't want to bother people. I didn't want to annoy them. I didn't want to kind of upset people because I thought working with them, I would want them to be happy. I didn't actually realize that people were really, really busy. When I was just sat in my room trying to send off these emails and build a business, I thought that everyone else was as not busy as me. I thought that everyone else was just kind of sitting around doing business and they would have plenty of time to reply to my emails. So I didn't want to be persistent because I thought they must have seen that email, they must have not replied to it. They don't want to work with me. So as you can probably tell, this took me a long time to build up a base of clients so I could actually sustain myself. Over the last 6 years, I've realized one of the most important skills to build when you're building a business is to be so persistent that it's kind of annoying. If you want something and if there is an opportunity there, you need to persistently follow up on that opportunity and make a lot of noise. Because it's not that people are necessarily ignoring you, it's that people have a lot of things happening. They have a lot of things going on. Now, the important thing here is to not be so persistent that you become obnoxious and you start demanding things, but it's to be that kind of persistent person who is going to follow up with a potential lead every single week until they either work with you or they call the police. Or if you just wanted to be friends with someone on the internet who you think does interesting things, it's sending them messages, it's sending them DMs, it's replying to their stuff, it's engaging with their work, until they eventually start talking to you. Now, there is an art to this. You don't want to be needy with any of these situations. You don't want to be so kind of cringe, I guess is the best way to explain it. But what you need to do is be persistent and play the long game. And what this almost annoying level of persistence does is it shows people that you are serious, and it shows them that you are playing the long game like they are. Now, the second thing is that cash flowing lifestyle businesses are the best kind of businesses. Now, there's this weird sentiment towards lifestyle businesses where people don't think they're ambitious enough. People seem to kind of glorify startups and glorify these huge billion-dollar exits. But I'm sure to most of us, the actual reality of trying to build a business like that would actually be a nightmare. Because to build a business that is absolutely huge like that, you have to sacrifice so many things and you have to give equity to a bunch of other people, which means sometimes people sell a venture funded company for $10 million. But what they actually end up getting is maybe a few $100,000 because they had co-founders, because they had a bunch of investors. So they didn't actually make that much money. They had to work ridiculously hard and endure a bunch of stress without having full ownership. Now, with something like a cash flowing lifestyle business, you can actually control everything and you can build an asset that you fully own. And what's great about this is you can decide to take the profits. You could then also decide to sell the business, but you own the full business. Now, when I'm talking about cash flowing lifestyle businesses, I'm not talking about tiny businesses that do 20 grand a year. I'm talking about the kind of business that can do 5 to 25 million a year. These are all categorized as lifestyle smaller businesses, especially something like an e-commerce store or even doing something with media where you can mass distribute that thing. Personally, I don't think a lot of people would actually want to build a venture funded company because they wouldn't want the lifestyle that goes along with that. If you build a cash flowing lifestyle business, you can actually design your lifestyle and you have a lot more freedom and autonomy with that business, and the upsides are still potentially huge. As an individual, you probably don't need more than 10, 15, 20 million in the bank to have a very, very comfortable life. And these are all things that are completely possible from building a lifestyle business. And if anything, I actually feel like the chances of these succeeding is probably higher because they actually generate money. Often venture funded companies don't generate money until they generate a bunch of money or they go bust. Whereas this kind of business actually generates money from day one. Now the third thing is to never stop marketing. Very, very few companies can get away without marketing. Typically these companies that do get away with this have a product that is either completely different to everyone else's, or it is so much better that they don't even have to compete with the next best competitor. But the chances are the kind of business that you're going to build, you might be marginally better in one area. And if that's the case, then you definitely need to market. Because every single successful business needs to get attention. They need to get the attention of the right people, but getting attention from people is really, really difficult. I think now is probably the most difficult time ever to get someone's attention because there is just so much noise, there is so many inputs. So you need to consistently be marketing yourself because that is then going to get someone's attention. If they see your message over and over and over again, they'll recognize what it is that you do, they'll recognize your company, and then when it comes to the time of them making a decision to potentially work with someone who offers what you offer or to buy a product that you sell, then they'll think about you. Now a good example of not doing this very well is I was looking through Twitter the other day and I saw a tweet from someone that said they were going to give up being a freelance designer and they were going to give up because they weren't getting any leads. So I clicked on their profile, I clicked on their links, and I looked through everything they had there, and not a single thing mentioned them being a designer. So as someone who hires a lot of freelance designers at our agency, how am I meant to know to actually hire this person? Because I couldn't see their work. I couldn't see that they were a freelance designer. I didn't see any reference to what it was that they did. So it was almost impossible for someone like me who is looking on Twitter for designers, someone who is always looking to work with people who are really good, to actually know that this person was really good because they were not marketing themselves. And I think a lot of the mistakes that people make, especially when they start out early in business, is that they think there's going to be one specific route that gets them their leads. They think that they're going to post on LinkedIn forever and then that's just going to be their one source of leads, or they think that doing cold outreach is going to be their source of leads. But what you actually need to do is open up the surface area to getting potential customers, to getting potential leads, because especially in the beginning, there isn't going to be one direct source. It's going to be a bunch of different things. And typically what actually happens is someone will find your product, they'll get the awareness that you're selling this product or you offer this service. And then over time, they'll forget about that thing, but then they'll see you pop up again in 3 or 6 months time. And maybe at that point, they're ready to purchase that thing. At that point, you've already built a level of trust because they recognize what it is that you offer. They have this bias towards you because they feel like they somewhat know you and they feel like they somewhat recognize you. And that is the point when they'll probably make the decision to purchase that thing. But this doesn't happen unless you increase the awareness, unless you market yourself consistently. Now, the fourth thing, and probably the most important thing, is that you can be happy while building a business. Now, for some reason, I don't get it at all why people seem to think that you have to be miserable while building a business, or you have to sacrifice yourself to build the business, which you'll then sell, which will then make you happy. Because it's pretty stupid to spend all of your time being miserable, doing something that you do not like, because you'll probably be building that business for a long time. And what's even weirder about this is, let's say you spent 10 years building a business and you were miserable building that business, and then you sold it for $20 million. Sure, you're gonna have a high for a very short period of time, but the chances are you're not going to be happy when you have that money because you haven't figured out how to be happy. You haven't figured out the things that you enjoy, and you haven't figured out like how to actually live a life that you enjoy living. So this idea of sacrificing yourself or having to be unhappy while building your business is kind of stupid. Instead, you should probably work on a business that you actually enjoy working on. You should probably do things that you enjoy doing, because then when you have that money as a side effect, when you eventually make that money, you're going to be fine because you're already happy. You don't necessarily need the money to be happy, and you know it's not going to make you happier. It's just going to make life a little bit easier. Now, the fifth thing is probably the most embarrassing one for me to look back at, and that is to not change how you speak when you're running a business. Now, when I first started running a business, I used to write emails a little bit like this. I'd say, "Dear John, it was excellent to talk to you earlier. I very much look forward to working together on this project. Best wishes, Stephen." But now I'll send an email that's a little bit more like this. It says, "Hey John, great to chat. Looking forward to working together. Cheers, Steven. Now, they communicate the exact same thing, but the main difference here is that one sounds like it was written by ChatGPT and one sounds like me. Now, it's a very bad way to run a business to sound like you could be AI. You're not going to build trust with people, and it's very difficult for someone to connect with you if you constantly operate in this way, because what happens is no one ever forms a bond with you. You almost become a robot in this sense. And one of the biggest benefits of actually being yourself and having your personality on show is that it's very easy to send emails. You don't have to think about sending an email or sending a text or really writing anything, because it's just the way you speak. It's just who you are. And then what happens is the kind of people who like you will then gravitate towards you. So you'll work with people you will actually get on with, the kind of people you actually like spending time with. And ultimately what people are looking for is the ability to work with people that they like. They want to connect with other people. They want to buy from brands that they like, that they have an affiliation with. They want to work with freelancers and agencies where the people who work there, they actually like working with them. They don't want to spend their time second guessing if you are AI or if you are actually a person. So if you're writing messages and that message could have been written by ChatGPT, then you're making a big mistake. I think the best example of this is if you see a tweet or a LinkedIn post and one of them looks like it's been written completely by ChatGPT, the exact kind of formatting that it does and the phrases about in today's digital world, and you see another post which talks about the exact same thing, but it seems like it comes from an individual. It has a bit of personality, it has a bit of emotion. The chances are you're gonna engage with that second piece. You're gonna actually relate to that second piece because it's a person, because it seems like it is from a person. Now, what also happens with this is some people will not like the content from the person because it actually has a view. It actually has something where it kind of stands for something. Whereas this other version is just very wishy-washy. It's very difficult to actually get on board with it. Now, this was a mistake I made for a long time. I used to also do this somewhat on calls, not to the same extent, but it was somewhat kind of hiding your personality, not speaking in the way that you actually speak. And some of it at the time, I think partly was this idea that when I was 18, 19, working with these tech companies, I kind of didn't want them to know how young I was. I kind of wanted them to think I was like in my mid-20s, which is the facial hair, I guess, somewhat helped. But this was definitely something that held me back. I wasn't able to build full connections with people because I was speaking in a way that I don't speak. Now, the sixth thing is really that running a business is actually just self-development in disguise. And when I talk about self-development, I don't mean some Tony Robbins guru, I'm gonna change the world kind of thing. What I actually mean is when you're building a business, the main thing you're gonna be doing is solving problems. You're going to spend pretty much all your time solving problems and figuring out better ways to work and better ways to do things. So what happens over time is you build this flywheel in your business where if you improve yourself, so you work on yourself, you improve your decision making, you improve how you operate, you then improve your business because you make better decisions, you do better things, you make better actions, you kind of have a better business overall, which then fulfills into you having a better life. And this cycle just runs over and over again. And if you do this for 5, 10 plus years, what you'll have is a very good life and a very good business. So finding this balance is one of the most important things. If you don't have the balance between you improving and the business improving, then it's very difficult because it feels like you're putting all your effort into the business. It's like sacrificing somewhat yourself to go into the business. But getting this flywheel is really, really important because what happens is everything in your life improves by you improving. And then your business improves. Now, the final thing that no one ever teaches you is that success should lead to you spending more time doing the things that you're uniquely good at and like doing, and less time of you doing the things that you're not good at and you don't like doing. Now, pretty much whenever anyone experiences some level of success, they'll have a lot more inbound, they'll have a lot more opportunities from all kinds of things, from speaking to people wanting to talk to them to pretty much everything. People will want to give you money if you're extremely successful. They'll kind of try to pay for anything. But what happens is people lose focus. People then are spending much less time on doing the thing that got them the success in the first place. And I think it's very natural to lean into that in the beginning because when you first start, no one cares. Like literally no one cares what you're doing. But then when you get some attention, you're going to feed into that attention. You're going to take those opportunities because you previously didn't have those opportunities. But over time, the most important thing is to refine back to make sure you're just doing the thing that you're specifically really good at. And this is really, really hard because you probably want to spend time on certain areas, but you know it's not necessarily a good idea to spend time on those areas, because even though it might be a good thing to do, even though it might be a useful thing to do, someone else might be able to do it better than you. They might enjoy it more, might just generally have a better output when doing that thing. Now, something I've learned recently is this idea of whenever you have a problem, reframing it from how can I solve this problem to who can solve this problem. It's a very small reframe, but ultimately what you should look for is who else can do this thing, who should be the person who solves this problem, because I don't have the time, I don't have the attention to solve that problem, because as someone who runs a business, you need to be the person who has the direction, you need to be the person who has the focus, but you also need to be the person who has time. So you need to put the pieces in place to actually solve these problems. In a similar way to how people say that a steady paycheck is the worst poison, because what happens is you get so comfortable, you don't want to make different moves because you have this steady paycheck every single month. A little bit of success is a similar thing. If you have a little bit of success, it can be so easy to get stuck in your ways and to get comfortable with doing more things because you have more opportunities. But the way to progress past that point is to actually pull back a little bit and focus on the correct things for you to be doing. Other people should be then doing those other things that actually need to be done in your business. And that is a really hard lesson to actually apply, because it's so easy to just want to jump into different things and constantly just be in action and just kind of making things happen and constantly making somewhat progress, but not making the kind of progress that you actually should be making. Okay, so that's everything for this video. I'm sure in a couple of years' time, I'll probably make another one of these where I tell you all the mistakes I'm currently making and how you should avoid those mistakes. If you enjoyed this video, then subscribe to the channel for more videos on entrepreneurship, creativity, and self-development.